Hi, everyone. You found us. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Emil Amok's takeout, my takes on all things considerable. That's what I call this kind of semi-secret podcast. You got to be lucky to find it. Congratulations. Hey, Happy New Year to you. What a weekend. I mean, the whole thing since New Year's Eve to New Year's Day to now was really one long, to be honest, right? I was in downtown or close to downtown San Francisco. I was in China Basin. That's not really downtown, but it's really all of down there for San Francisco. And if there's no game or no concert, it was empty. There was there was nothing going on down there, right? Except for a funeral wake that I attended. So I'll talk about that still. I mean, you just don't get over that just like that. I mean, it hits you. So it's been one long weekend, essentially. The funeral started for my cousin, Kristopher, and I call him cousin. I'll explain later. Kristopher and Chad. If you listen to Emil Amok's EAT819, I talk about it, but I'll read from the column that I wrote in the Philippine Inquirer, so that you'll get it whole. You won't miss a thing. And he would have been on January 5th. He would have been 35. That's why it was important to publish that there on Inquirer.net, also on ASM News. The longer version is on Inquirer.net. But then, of course, today is January 6th, so we'll lead with January 6th, and also we'll talk about other things that happened on January 5th, which were the Golden Globes. And if you've ever followed my columns on the Aldef blog, the Emil Amok columns there, I talk about the Golden Globes a lot because the Golden Globes, to me, indicate they're like a barometer of what we care about. Because in America, we are all essentially, right? We're equals, right? Except for celebrities. Celebrity is our royalty here. The stars. And I guess politicians to a degree, except you vote for them, they can't be royalty. But celebrities, that's in a democracy, that's what matters, right? Fame, fortune, and the Golden Globes kick off that season. So they're a kind of barometer of the awards, and they're different because after all the hubbub over diversity the last 5-10 years, last year was the first year they did something about it. This is the second year. I mean, it was new ownership primarily. The same company that owns the Hollywood Reporter took over with the Dick Clark production company, and that really has determined how it's a little different than the old days when it was the Hollywood Foreign Press. And I don't want to dump on the Hollywood Foreign Press because a lot of, it's the press from all these other countries, including the Philippines. But some people questioned if they knew what the heck they were doing. Because suddenly this show that they had started for, I remember seeing it as a little kid. It was on UHF. No one wanted it. No one had discovered that this was a gold mine, this annual award show. And then it became something, I guess Ricky Gervais kind of put it on the map. And then yesterday, I think, was probably as good as it gets, I think, with the Golden Globes. I'll explain why. We'll talk about the Globes. We'll talk about the movies. And, when a movie like Emilia Perez is like the buzz. I mean, it was nominated on Netflix, but now when it won, best musical comedy, it's not a comedy. It's really a musical. But when it wins the one of the top awards there, you got to say, oh, Emilia Perez. And of course, anything named Emilia, I kind of gravitate to. Oh, the feminine form. of me. I love this. Everyone's going to see Amelia and they're going to think of Emil Amok, maybe. Although I'm not nearly as pretty as Amelia Perez. Anyway, we'll talk about that, the Golden Globes, and I'll talk about my cousin Kristopher. But I do want to talk about January 6th today because it's a special day. Because I don't know if you recall where you were 4 years ago, but do you remember watching on television when these hooligans were rioting, were committing an act of insurrection at the nation's capital? I mean, I worked at the nation's capital for a brief period, the 103rd Congress. I mean, that's a building. That's like that's a museum. It's like the Church of Democracy. It's a hallowed place, and I just felt lucky that I was able to have access and go through it as an employee. And it was one of the things I said, to my family. I said, it's hard not to live in Washington, D.C. and not really give yourself an opportunity to experience the Capitol, experience working there. And so when I was in between media opportunities, that's where I went. It was a great experience, although I realized it wasn't for me. But it still was great to say you're there. Wow, it's great. And if you had if you have an opportunity to work there, I think you'd say the same thing. Thank goodness I got to see what the cloakroom looks like. The Senate cloakroom. Thank goodness I got to go at the House, on the House floor. I got to sit in the gallery. I got to go on the floor. I got to walk around. It's so January 6th today, because of, if you remember where you were 4 years ago, oh my God, is our country falling apart? What is going on? I think those concerns are real. To think that Donald Trump spent, was it a couple hours, 3 hours, when he was just trying to figure out, well, what do I do now? I don't know what to do now. It's just crazy. So the point I'm trying to make is, I hope you were taken by, you marked that day 4 years ago and said, where, and remembered where you were, because then I know you're like me, maybe you're a news nerd. But January 6th isn't for just news nerds. It's for all of us. And it's almost like I know not many people did it because people didn't shut down the networks and cut into programming. If you saw cable news, maybe you saw it. But this is maybe a day we should have declared this is Electoral College Day, the certification of the election. And it's okay to go to the Electoral College for a day. It's not really a college, but that's the real subtext for the popular vote last November. Of course, we know it's how small states negate the vote of bigger states, the Electoral College. It's not the fairest way, but it's in the Constitution, and the vote was certified in Congress on Monday. And unlike 2020 or 2021, the election of 2020, it happened in 2021, January. It happened cordially. It happened with people smiling. It happened in that peaceful way that is a hallmark of our democracy. Now, if you watched, you didn't see one side storm the Capitol and insist that it won when it didn't. Think about that. Didn't see that today. If you remember where you were January 6, 2021, well, that's what we saw. You didn't see a sore loser urge his supporters to commit an act of insurrection. You didn't see anyone say anything remotely like hang Mike Pence. You didn't see people die on the Capitol grounds as one side that felt jilted, that felt like they were robbed, stormed the building and forced our legislators, members of Congress, to hide and seek safety. Some of them were just a few hundred feet away from violence perpetrated by these insurrectionists. And I think this is part of the surreal they show two sides of what happened in 2021 and how things went today, 2025. And what happened in 2021 was not what the president-elect has repeatedly called a day of love. It was not a day of love. January 6, 2021. That was not a day of love. But this week, 4 years after, we saw that peaceful transition of power, the hallmark of democracy, part of our Constitution. It was restored. Democrats were graceful and true. There was Vice President Harris. Oh my God, she was presiding over the thing. And if you want to see what being mindful is like, if you want to know what mindfulness is all about, consider you have lost an election very close, the popular vote, very close. Trump only got 49.8%. Kamala Harris, 48 point something, 48.6, something like that. Very, very narrow margin. And the majority of people, Harris voters and non-Harris voters, are actually 50% what Donald Trump got. Donald Trump only got 49.8%. But you look at the negating power of the Electoral College, and there was Kamala Harris having to preside over this. Did she raise her hand and say, "Oh, this is not right. Something's wrong"? Did she challenge? Did she use every available No. She believed in the Constitution. She believed in the rule of law. The Electoral College is the arbiter of our electoral process, and she presided over this count. And it was simple as ABC. They counted alphabetically. And I was listening, and when the first states, California, when it was called, Harris was thrust into the lead. You can see the counter. See the counter showing, there are more Harris votes than Trump votes. They call that California, then Colorado, then Connecticut, and D.C., and Delaware. Oh, my God. And you thought, Harris 77, Trump 29, stop the vote. But then the alphabet march continued, and when all the states were counted, A to Z, Trump had 312, Harris 226. It's tough to take, but that's the way it works according to the Constitution. And if you don't like it, you can change it. And I'm sure some people are thinking about dumping the Electoral College and trying to change it. That's going to take a constitutional convention. Very hard to do. But it's part of the process. And in lieu of that, the process goes on. The next election, really in 2 years, the midterms, where the people who lost, the Democrats can say, yeah, we're going to change. We're going to take over Congress and send a message to the lamest duck of all, Donald Trump, who will get a message by the midterms if he's doing a good job. His report card comes back in 2 years. And even then, he's only got 4. The question is he going to change the Constitution? Is he going to say, hey, you know what? I like this job so much. I want to be president for more than this 4-year term. I think I should be president like my good pal President Xi in China. I should be president for life. But they're not good pals, but who knows what will happen in 4 years. President Trump has envied Xi, president for life. Would you put it past Trump to say that? Oh, look, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying let's capitulate. I'm not saying let's be like the big media moguls. I'm not saying be like Disney and give in to the $15 million suit, which essentially was a gift to President Trump. They had a libel suit, $15 million. They essentially settled, dropped the claim, or dropped the fight against libel because they merely reported on ABC News what President Trump did in, the sexual assault case, E. Jean Carroll. Trump claimed they libeled him. Disney didn't want to fight. Essentially caving in, $15 million to Donald Trump. He's already raised like $250 million just for the inaugural party. Are you going? Did he invite you? So, we don't have to capitulate like the big media folks, like Jeff Bezos. They spiked. They killed a cartoon showing everyone in bended knee in the media and big tech. Bended knee to Donald Trump. So we got to think about how we proceed. I think how we proceed is we say, this is America. Today, January 6th, because there's not, the Democrats aren't rioting saying, take back our country. You stole the election. It's invalid. We believed in the process. The election was certified. We counted the Electoral College. Now we work. The job of democracy, which is fight hard for the policies you believe in, and then convince people not to follow ideologically, down some path, but really convince people that you have a better way. We're still having these partisan battles. Donald Trump isn't even in yet, but he's accusing Joe Biden of trying to block, his drill, baby, drill. Drill, baby, drill has to be one of the most irresponsible phrases in politics I've ever heard, especially when you consider where the United States, where the world is in terms of climate change, in terms of, carbon emissions. We should be talking about trying to control the heat, control the temperatures. The world heating up. We already know that 2040 is a key moment, a key date. If we don't do something, if we don't keep temperatures to under 1.5 degrees, if we don't keep it the rise, and we're already beyond that, which means that 2040 date becomes sooner, which means we are in trouble. And we have the president-elect saying, burn, baby, burn. And when Joe Biden tries to do something responsible by stopping drilling on federal land in this as one of his final acts, Donald Trump's out there saying, this is irresponsible. You're not going to stop drill, baby, drill. Well, I don't know. Trump's viewpoint is a selfish one, going for short-term profits, not thinking of what is happening on the, in the long term. But this is where the politics begins trying to convince people what are the best policies. And you saw that when Trump was in, he reversed all the climate stuff. Biden came in, all the climate stuff went back in. Trump gets back in, all the climate stuff goes out. We are going to be going whiplashing like that throughout unless the American public tells its leadership, Trump right now, or will be January 20th, hey, you know, I don't like this idea about the, how America is acting ignorantly about climate change. I mean, we don't even talk about it in the election. It hardly came up. Climate hardly came up. AI hardly came up. And, AI is not the most climate friendly. It's like cyber, it's like, Bitcoin, cyber currency. It takes a lot of computing power to deal with all that, to make it crypto. And it's not environmentally friendly. If we're not environmentally friendly, there may not be any tomorrow, or at least the tomorrow is going to be compromised. So think about that. How do we proceed? I don't know how we proceed. But if you're on the opposing side, politics is about convincing the other side, working together to come with a better answer, certainly a better answer than we have now, where Donald Trump thinks he has it all his way, but he's going to see that the Electoral College is a fake landslide. It does not show just how closely or how small his margin is when he talks about, when he looks at to get votes in the Congress, either in the House or the Senate. It's not going to be easy doing anything he wants to do. But we're all doing it peacefully. That's the difference in 26 from 2021. It's all peaceful, but it's not going to be easy. So, I want to talk about the Golden Globes a bit, because I love to talk about the Golden Globes. I love to talk about the Golden Globes because, to me, the Golden Globes represent one of the big things. I mean, this is WDAAAT. What does an Asian American think? And for Asian American media, especially, and Asian Americans, one of the things about our sense of progress is if we see ourselves, if we show up in the media, if we show up in movies. We hardly ever did, in previous generations. I mean, but look at what happens now. Shogun becomes a venture still run by essentially white producers, but it's become more of a cooperative effort between Asian and Americans, and the stars are Asians and Asian Americans. And wow, they were big at the Golden Globes. I mean, you can't look at the Golden Globes in 2025 and say, wow, where's the representation? There's a lot of diversity there. I mean, they didn't show it, which was a shame. But when, I want to get her name right, when Viola Davis was brought out, they didn't show it, unfortunately. But I mean, she's like one of the premier actors on the planet, getting an award, showing Meryl Streep presenting her an award, the big Golden Globe Award. I mean, it's funny, they just had her as a presenter, but they didn't show her winning the big award as the this renowned actress. That's a diversity statement. You have a movie, Emilia Perez, about, I mean, winning Best Musical. No one thought that would win. Then you have another movie about an Hungarian immigrant, architecture, The Brutalist, which is actually an architectural term about, forget the stylish details of the past, your idea of, the frilly kind of architecture, of all the, I'm not an architect, but you know what I mean? I mean, modern architecture was concrete and steel and shapes and geometry, and it was functional, and it looked kind of dull from, the kind of flowery, kind of, embellished kind of facades that you might have seen in, previous centuries. It was really stripped down, modern. It was called brutalism. And Toth, the immigrant, it was his story, the architect's story about art and daring. A 3-hour movie, which is art and daring in itself. And that was the other big winner last night. Between The Brutalist and Emilia Perez, my God, what does that say? And I was saying, usually the Golden Globes are a symbol of, or a barometer for how we feel. And there's usually someone who uses the platform to make a statement about where we are as a country, where we are in the world. I didn't hear anything about climate. I didn't hear anything about, in fact, I heard vague references about these being hard times and we don't trust each other. So, there's bad things happening. And then I heard Aquafina joked with Melissa McCarthy about using the Golden Globes as a platform. I mean, it was a joke to use it as a platform. So no one used it as a platform. The great thing about these Golden Globes is that on its face, it was diverse. You got, you have Viola Davis. You have Denzel Washington was nominated, didn't win. You had Emilia Perez. You have this Hungarian immigrant story, The Brutalist. I mean, and you had Shogun. There's a lot of diversity. Diversity was not an issue. But no one dared use the Globes as a statement for anything except for their art, which was, I think, maybe a positive thing. Everyone stayed in their lane. There was no mention of Trump except for Nikki Glazer's joke where she talked about how celebrities had no power to convince people how to vote and how she was scared. That's right. Next time you'll get it done next time. That was about as close as it got to a political reference. And I suppose there is this feeling, is it capitulation to the president-elect, or is it just, hey, we're artists, this is what we do, we're going to concentrate on our movies. And if you look at it, yeah, the movies were a statement in and of themselves, right? Instead of making the statement of using the Globes as a platform, hey, here's a movie, The Brutalist. A 3-hour movie, the studio said they didn't want. It got made, and here it's awarded as the best drama. Here is Emilia Perez, and this is the political statement about a Mexican drug dealer who goes through transition. This is a statement. This goes beyond politics. But it's real. It's entertaining, and it works its magic if 5-10 years from now people look back and say, boy, that Amelia Perez, the music from Amelia Perez. And I thought the trans issue was all just about drugs or all just about bathrooms and my girl playing sport with a boy. No. How juvenile. I saw a trans story of this Mexican drug dealer, and wow. I think I get it now. I mean, that's what art does. That's the transformation of art. The Globe stayed in their lane. It's all about entertainment. On January 5th, they awarded the directors and the storytellers, and even with January 6th the next day, not one insurrection joke. Not one. There was an RFK Jr. joke, about here's baby reindeer and here's all these other animal type things. And, we're not talking about what's in RFK Jr.'s fridge. That got a laugh. I paraphrased her joke. She got a bigger. Nikki Glaser was great. I saw Nikki Glaser here in my little Central Valley town. 4:00 show. She sold out. She sold out the night show, and so she had to do a 4:00 show. And I was there. I loved her. She was great. I've always liked Nikki Glaser. And I have to say this. Nikki Glaser proved that, hey, a woman solo, she could host the Golden Globes. I mean, it's almost better because she gets, when Nikki Glaser did a costume change, she must have done like 8 or 9 of them. Much more interesting than seeing Joe Coy putting on a different tuxedo. I mean, Nikki Glaser was all elegant. Women may have noticed there was a lot of cleavage in this Golden Globes. I mean, there always is, but maybe more so. But Nikki Glaser, who's known for ultra short dresses, was wearing ultra long ones and still looked great. And I think when you have a rep as being the blonde Don Rickles, the point is, if you're going to be brought down with humor, I'd rather get it from Nikki Glaser than Don Rickles. And so there was something appealing about her that enabled her to just win the crowd. She was cute and innocent. The takedown artist turned into de facto host model. And I felt bad for Joe Coy a bit because Joe Coy had good jokes. Although, he last year when Joe Coy was up there, he changed, or he came to the job late. And if you saw the number of writers for Nikki Glaser, I mean, she must have had a list of like a dozen writers. I think Joe Coy had like 3 or 4. And they were to turn it around and do a monologue. Same kind of monologue. Here I am. I'm going to make fun of all the people here. But nicer than Ricky Gervais. Joe Coy made fun of Taylor Swift and got boos. Nikki Glaser makes fun of Timothée Chalamet and no one boos. Everyone is just it's Nikki Glaser. Is that racism? I don't know. But like I said, I think people are just happy to get it from Nikki Glaser than from Joe Coy, which is unfortunate. Joe Coy was funny, and he did what comics do when but joke bombs. He tried to recover. Hey, I only had a couple days to do this. He didn't throw his writers under the bus. He would just say, hey, I'm a comic. But he got no slack a year ago, and this year, Joe Coy's presence was, I saw an ad for the new Hollywood Squares. I hope he gets the center square. But he's not. As a Filipino, he's probably going to get the bottom middle or the top middle or a side. He's going to be one of the middle ones. The guy in the square, the center, he's the guy everyone goes to because he's going to get the most touches. The middle guys, not so much. The side middle or the top middle. And the corners get a lot of touches. So between the middle square and then the corners, the 1, 2, 3, 4 corners, that's 5 squares that you want to be in if you're good. And then if you're like want to hide and don't want to be called, then you're one of the middle squares on the side, and the top, bottom, or the ends. I've played tic-tac-toe before, but I wish him well because by getting raked over the coals for the Golden Globes last year, I mean, he recovered by going on a world tour, making millions of dollars, and he's become a kind of, he's the Filipino-American comic. I don't know about his sitcom. Haven't heard anyone picking it up. They made it, I think. His movie bombed. Spielberg backed it, but he does his thing. He's going to be the Filipino-American Scoey Mitchell, which is okay. I mean, he's not going to be Scoey Mitchell, wishes he were Pryor, but he's not, well, thank goodness, in some respects. Scoey Mitchell and you game show fans. Anyway, I wish him well. I think he represents something about Filipino American. He's half Filipino. His mother's Filipino, father's white. But I think, we look at Olivia Rodrigo, she's half. Father Filipino. The father, if you're Filipino father, that's the special one. Olivia Rodrigo, father Filipino. That half. Although everyone wants to push the ethnicity, just like, I guess, Judaism goes through your mother. But really, the father. Father's important. And I'm full Filipino. But father, if your father's Filipino, that's something. Because you carry the name. So, anyway, I thought Nikki Glaser was good as far as Asian Americans, because that's always been my thing. When are Asians going to be represented? And they were last year. Beef, Ali Wong. She comes back and wins best comedy special, which I thought was funny, but not her best. I've seen Ali Wong. I've communicated with her for years, since she was just breaking through. And her meteoric rise, I have witnessed it, and it is, a little envious, but she deserves it. She's funny. I rooted her when she was in her first film, Savages. Oliver Stone directing. She played a kind of nymphette, which she's, if you've seen her shows, but she was kind of subdued, I thought, Ali Wong. She won, and she thanked the people at the Punchline, and she had her friend there. I don't know how happy she is. I know she got a divorce. I know she's hanging out with Bill Hader. Maybe, I think still. Bill Hader, the comic actor. But I don't know. She didn't seem that happy. She seemed happy, but not, like controlled. So, congratulations to Ali Wong. The person who made a splash. Well, let me talk about the others. Kihei Kwan, good. I mean, him and Michelle Yeoh, since Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? That has put them on the map. They're Asian American celebrities. They are us. If I'm talking to you other Asians, they are us. And They're like perennial presenters. We need an Asian. Get Kihei. Get Michelle. It's great. They're working too. But, Aquafina. And here's the thing. The lineage. It's the Crazy Rich Asians lineage. And it goes back to John Chu. John Chu, the director of Wicked. It was really his moment, because they opened up a new category. You can't make $700 million at the box office and get nothing. That's the way it used to be. But now people say, oh, you made $700 million. We're going to recognize you. And so Wicked, with the director, John Chu, gets recognized. Chu from the Bay Area. His parents own a bunch of restaurants on the peninsula primarily. And what a story. Chu was born in America. He was an Asian American. This is why I like John Chu. He was born here to immigrants early on. He's not a Johnny-come-lately immigrant like the last 20 years. He was born here. And smart, went to USC, knew what he wanted to do, worked in film, got his chance with Crazy Rich Asians, which made a ton of money. And then he catapulted that into a varied career, including West Side Story, I believe he did. And then he did this. He did Wicked. And it all stemmed from hanging out with Lin-Manuel Miranda in New York, I understand. But he's a talent. USC Film School. And Wicked would not have won accolades, and he would not have gotten up, except for they got this new category that doesn't penalize a box office success. And so, thank goodness, he got a chance to get up there and speak. And it was great. He talked about the movies. He talked about how this was, once again, staying in the lane. It's about the movies. It's about the art. So congrats to John Chu. We talked about Shogun, how that was more Asian than American, perhaps. But that's what made it special. That's what made it an excellent vehicle. I've only seen some of it, but it's a well-made movie, and Asians are the focus, and it's great. So that was the Globes. I like the Globes. A lot of the shows that I love, that I watch, Baby Reindeer, because I attend the Fringe festivals. And that was a show about the Edinburgh Fringe and about a guy who had a stalker while doing his show at the Fringe. And it's a real story. And Richard Gadd, I think, right? I don't have his name here. I should have it here. I should go to the winners. Where is that winners list? I got to open up the app here. Here's the winners list. I'm sorry. Yeah, and if you've watched Baby Reindeer, I mean, it is a real story. It's a real story, and a story that, as pointed out by the actor, it was one that needs to be told, and wouldn't have been if no one gave it a chance. And Yeah, Richard Gadd. Richard Gadd. And he said, yeah, let's tell the big stories, but let's tell the little stories too. And this is the thing that's kind of like a fringe mindset, a fringe festival mindset, because the fringe festival are for people who get shut out. And so here is the story, Baby Reindeer, and it's Richard Gadd and a fringe performer who took his show to the Edinburgh Festival, and it features a trans woman. It features this large woman who's a stalker. It's a story of a guy trying to do a guy who gets abused in the in the story by everyone, and somehow comes out of it. It's if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. Baby Reindeer. It beat out Disclaimer, Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, The Penguin, Ripley, and True Detective Night Country, which is great. That was with Jodie Foster. So, I don't want to give short shrift to the Shogun folks, NSOI and Hiroyuki Sanada. They're great. I mean, Shogun, Hiroyuki Sanada beats out Donald Glover, Jake Gyllenhaal, Gary Oldman, Eddie Redmayne, and Billy Bob Thornton. Gene Smart. I love Hacks. And I was surprised that it won because it was up against stiff competition. I thought maybe The Bear would win. But Hacks prevailed in Golden Globes because it's funny. And it features an older woman, Gene Smart, who is great in it. And it's about her relationship with Hannah Einbender, who plays her writer. A great human story. And if you're into comedy, it shows that human side. Anyway, a great series. They won Best Television Series, Musical, or Comedy. And so a lot can be said. You look at the shows that won, and you say, wow, I got to watch Amelia Perez. I better watch that. Maybe I'll take the trans story seriously. I mean, sometimes that's all you need to do. You got to know someone who's trans or understand, so you have the empathy, so you're not like misled by people who say, "Oh yeah, the trans, yeah, they want to use the bathroom. Yeah, they want to play against my daughter. I don't want that to happen." So ignorant, but that's the way people think. Also, shout out to Demi Moore. Wow. I mean, it took some courage for her to get up there and talk about a comment that she got in her career that sort of, she said, corroded her career. She won Best Performance by an Actress in a Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy for her role in The Substance, which is a French horror movie. But she says, I mean, it's a kind of speech you like to hear. Stars humbled. And if you've done any performing, you say, wow, I like Demi Moore. I mean, I've always liked her a little bit, but not, I've never been overboard on Demi Moore. Some people say, oh, she's the most beautiful. Yeah, she's all right. But, man, she was on top of the world, right? Before. I mean, she's been doing it for 45 years. She says, I've been doing this a long time, and this is the first time I've ever won anything as an actor for The Substance. She says, 30 years ago, I had a producer tell me I was a popcorn actress, and at that time, I made that mean this wasn't something I was allowed to have. She's holding the Oscar, and she says that I could do movies that made a lot of money, but that I couldn't be acknowledged, and I bought and I believed that. Boy, it speaks to actors' self-esteem issues, right? I mean, we're fragile folks. We have to be strong. We have to be like Kamala Harris at January 6th today. As she said, this is the certified vote. She gavels. She certifies the election. Of course, the law doesn't allow people to challenge in the way they did 4 years ago, but still, it's this routine pro forma event. Still hurt. But Demi Moore said all the comments she got from producers, that one particular producer, corroded. This thought corroded her to the extent that she thought a couple of years ago that maybe this was it. Maybe I was complete, that I had done what I was supposed to do. Oh, that's an actor. Like circling the drain. She was at a low point when this script, The Substance, written by Coralie Farge, found its way to her. And Moore said, the universe told me you are not done. And Moore said she celebrates the win as a marker for my wholeness, for the love that's driving me, and the gift of doing something I love. And that was a great speech. It was like, they love me. You love me. You really love me. Sally Field's speech. But it does, and most people would say, oh, Demi Moore, she's one of the most successful, right? She's a successful actress. You don't have to worry about Demi Moore. She's got it all, right? Apparently not. Apparently, she still has her doubts. And I just think that, that was a moment for me. That moment, Richard Gadd's moment. Zoe Saldana, she had a great moment when she was just so happy. She was the first award. That you need an award winner like that going first. And that is, Zoe Saldana, she was great. And so I'm just looking over my notes here. Yeah, I just thought, these were good Globes. And they weren't all just, super white actors and actresses. There was a diverse crew. You got a sense of diversity. You got a sense of stories that you don't hear very often. And Asian Americans, my bread and butter. The Asian Americans were represented. Some people might say, come on. Are we a subplot? Are we part of this? No, we're part of the story. We're part of the story. Shogun, not a subplot. I mean, some people might say, hey, the bamboo ceiling's still there. Got to keep fighting. Yeah, you got to keep fighting. But I think diversity this year is not as big a problem, at least in terms of representation. Probably could be more. I'd like to see more in terms of people behind the scenes, decision makers. That would make a difference. I think that is making a difference now. Because as kids move on and they get out of, the confines that they place themselves in, I think it makes a difference. All right. I'm not going to be able to read the Kristopher story. So go off to go off to Inquirer.net and read my story on Kristopher. I'll read it tomorrow out loud if you want to hear me vocalize it. That's what I like to do in these things. But it's late, and I'll be back tomorrow. So it's January 6th. I still feel bad that I still feel bad about the election, but watching the way it was supposed to happen 4 years ago, the takeaway is feel good about being an American, feel good about democracy. And you can feel bad about Donald Trump, but the lesson about dealing with Donald Trump is we got to be better at democracy. We have to be better at convincing voters to vote for better policy that's real, and not resort to the tactics of Trump, which are to deny and to. He's destroyed democracy by lying about democracy, by insisting that January 6, 2021, it was about love, a day of love. It wasn't a day of love. Today was closer to love, but it was heartache too. I feel for Kamala Harris, but use her example. If you watch the clip of her declaring or certifying the vote, use that as an example of mindfulness. Use that as an example of what mindfulness is. It means, one of my best definitions is, mindfulness means I don't punch that guy in the face. You're cool, you're calm, you're in control, you're mindful, and you move forward toward your goal. In spite of a loss, in spite of something that should be debilitating, but no, you move on. You fight on. And that's it. Back in tomorrow. I'll read Christopher's the column I wrote about Kristopher tomorrow, the final one. We close with a little loving kindness. Meta. Oh, the latest. The UFC guy is going to join Meta. Dana White, backer of Trump, joining the board of Meta. META. Zuckerberg, who has become skilled in jiu-jitsu, broke the news on Facebook. I don't know what that means. Further, I don't know. Maybe they're going to use AI in UFC. UFC can use another 2 bits of the alphabet. UFC AI. Maybe. That way you don't have to worry about fighters being hurt. They're all AI. Beating each other up. I don't know. Maybe, people in glasses. I mean, anything can happen here. But Mark Zuckerberg, maybe it is maybe it shows, hey, we can work together. Reach out and touch that Trump person. No, don't punch him. Touch, just offer a handshake. We got to work together. Got to convince one another that we have a better plan. That's what it's about. That's politics. All right. So we do Metta, METTA, which is a loving kindness meditation at the end. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time, Mahal Kita.